Southwest England has some of the most beautiful landscape in Britain and is the UK's most popular destination for domestic visitors. In 2007, 118 million tourist trips were made to the southwest, spending a total of £9 billion. Our climate is changing, and our tourism businesses are increasingly feeling the effects of extreme weather conditions: storms, sea level rises, flash floods, heavier rainfall, coastal erosion, and higher summer temperatures. These climate changes are affecting our countryside, with snowdrops appearing earlier and some tree and plant species finding it difficult to survive. However, it also presents opportunities, from the collection of rainwater to harnessing sunlight through solar panel installations. Torrential rain in the summers of 2004 and 2007 caused some of the worst floods ever seen in the region. The average number of winter storms has increased significantly, and sea level rises are affecting coastal communities and businesses. Our summers are getting hotter too. The 10 warmest years on record have all occurred since 1998. The increase in occurrence and intensity of these more extreme weather events will have a huge impact on our tourism industry. Whether you're an accommodation provider, an attraction, organise outdoor festivals and events, manage a riverside restaurant, run a golf club, or maintain some of our historical buildings and gardens, your business will need to adapt to our changing climate. This film explores the impact of climate change on a wide variety of tourism businesses in the southwest and the positive steps they've taken to adapt.
Weather patterns have changed in Studland. We're getting a far greater increase in easterly winds in particular, and on top of that we're getting more storm events, storm surges, and the combination of the two can be quite devastating as far as coastal erosion is concerned.
In 2005, when we had the big flood, it was termed a 1 in 100 year storm event, but actually in that year we had 6 of those storms. But if you went back 20 years ago, we'd hardly expect to get 1 in a year.
What I've noticed here is that we've seen more extremes in the weather patterns. In particular, in 2006 we encountered quite a severe drought, which had a negative impact on the golf course. But equally, there have been occasions where we've had real bursts of rain, of heavy rain, in short periods of time, as opposed to in the past when we've perhaps seen rain over similar rain amounts over a longer period of time.
Well, having been born in Looe and lived here all my life, we've noticed a big change towards more unsettled weather, more intense rain, very heavy showers, whether you go towards calling it monsoon rain. And then there's been more flooding, which is a major problem for Looe. And then the other side of the coin is that we have had more intense sunlight, and people have been coming into the shops asking for hats and some parasols, looking for protection because it is so warm. And that's what we've really noticed, is the extremes.
Well, I've noticed extreme weather changes over the last 6 years, basically. When I say extreme weather conditions, we're getting a lot heavier rainfall at certain times of the year. And when I mean heavier rainfall, it's like a continuous downpour.
We have to watch out for the brook in case it floods over. So I know when I took over this garden, my predecessor left a note saying make sure everything's done work-wise between October and November, because it might be too wet here to carry on.
I've noticed in the last few years we've had a big rise in the river levels, up to about sort of 3 metres, and it causes a serious devastating effect. The state of the gardens after the mess, because we're doing wedding show rounds constantly, and we have to explain what has exactly happened, to convince them that the gardens do look wonderful when they're going to have their wedding in the summer.
Over the last 5 years, weather changes, I would have said, have been a more sort of increased amount of rain, heavier bursts, and it's been much harder to take the water away off the roof.
Well, in the far west of Cornwall where we are, we have actually seen some changes, and I suppose really they've been the extremes more than anything that come to mind. We've actually kept quite comprehensive records since the 1940s, which actually show us we've definitely seen more extremes in dry weather and also wet weather within the last few years.
Since I moved down to Devon in 2003, I've noticed that the winters have become wetter, windier. We're now cutting the grass much earlier in the year and having to cut it till much later in the year, and the summers are becoming warmer, and certainly a big difference even in as recent as 5.5 years.
In 2004, the main bridge, which is within a few feet of the building, came completely blocked, and it caused a dam situation whereby we were exposed to about 17 feet of water from where the base of Valentia normally flows. So the restaurant completely was underwater, and 2.5 feet in the first floor was completely underwater in the accommodation. The rain started in the morning on a kind of light note, and then gently it kind of got heavier and heavier as the day progressed. By about 3 o'clock it was a tremendous downpour, and the height of the river came up to 17 feet at the back of us by about 5:45 time.
Yes, we're a small bed and breakfast here in Boscastle, Cornwall. The impact was 4 foot of water through the majority of the house and another 6 inches in the remainder of the house, and that effectively closed us down for 9 months.
Well, I'm standing in the middle of this rhododendron bush here, and right in front of me here is an alien pathogen. It's called Phytophthora ramorum. We don't know where it actually comes from in the world, but it's enjoying the changes that we're actually having now with our climate. And this won't be the last. This will be the first of many new pathogens that will actually come over and affect not only our exotic plants, but also our native plant communities as well.
Glastonbury's been affected by these extreme weather events. Quite obviously, we had the big flood in 2005.
No fishing, no diving.
And then of course 2007 was a wet festival as well. It affects people wanting to come, obviously in the first place, but it's mean that we've had to spend a lot more money on the infrastructure, on the drainage of the site. Before then, very little drainage work had ever been done because we'd had a lot of dry weather.
Climate change is having a huge impact on Studland. Coastal erosion is the main effect. Where I'm standing now was part of a dune just 4 weeks ago, so we've lost 2 metres of dune in that period of time.
We see climate change as a opportunity. I think you have to be positive. Things in life will always continually change, and it's how we adapt to that change.
Yes, it is a threat. We know it's a threat, but I think you have to face every day, every month, every year, and adapt to those procedures as it happens.
I guess it's whether you're an optimist or a pessimist. I tend to be an optimist, so I think for us we're quite lucky in the fact that the topography of this site aids drainage very well. If you look at this site, less than 2% of the site is actually on a river floodplain. This natural sloping topography gives us great drainage, and of course we're at the top of the river system rather than further down the river system.
What we've done to adapt to the extra rainfall that we've been experiencing, just simple things like increasing the depth of the gullies and increasing the number of downpipes taking the water away, and this way it has stopped the ingress of water into the property with the potential of damaging the priceless collections beneath us.
When we get a high tide alert, the first thing to go out is the tide board. Once this is in position, that will hopefully keep out about 18 inches worth of water, and usually when we are alerted, it only takes one shopkeeper to have heard, and then the message is cascaded down through the street. They usually all work together.
The major adaptation we took is put slate floor into all the ground floor. The kitchen units have been raised on little plastic legs to prevent them getting damaged. Just simple precautionary measures you can take that don't impact on your lifestyle.
We put solid plate glass windows in, a flood protection level up to the barriers that you see there on our restaurant windows.
Just in 20 years, we've had to move the beach huts back 3 times, and you can see them over there at least 20 metres from where I'm standing now.
The whole of the National Trust is signed up to the Met Office, so we get Met Office weather warnings on email, and you do permanently watch all the weather forecasts. The first thing I do on wet weather is check for the weather warnings and then check the high tide tables. So, and also we tie our bridge down just in case, because you're never quite sure whether it's just going to lap over the edges of the brook or totally go over the garden.
One of the adaptation measures we've taken actually here at the old mill is to in fact install these flood barriers. It has been known to come up to this level here, so they are installed once we've received a flood warning from the Environment Agency to protect the business to actually install them, and it takes approximately 10 to 20 minutes to install them.
When I came here in September 2003, we had 400 of these. These are what you call your traditional tin box caravans, aluminium skinned, low insulation, only suitable for 8 months of the year usage. They will not withstand the new climate changes that are coming, and everyone's familiar with condensation and everything else, which you don't get in what I'm about to show you. Where we are now, we're in one of the new style caravans, built to a completely different standard. This is built to the same as building regs. Consequently, the insulation is far superior, and it is suitable for any climate change and any extreme temperatures, whatever the season.
Probably the biggest change that we've made here is the water allocation to each of the greens, so that we're now using less water. But what we're doing is, you can see here that the outcome of this is that these fine grasses here, which are much more tolerant to drought conditions, are starting to flourish. These are the indigenous grasses, and we're encouraging the return of those, and we're trying to manage away the less desirable grasses.
For the first 20 years of the festival, these pipes were perfectly adequate to take all the water in this stream system adjacent to the Pyramid Arena here. But with these increased storm events, they were overrun. This whole area became flooded, particularly at the 2005 festival. So then we had to bypass them and put in some much bigger pipes next door. This is the replacement pipe for those smaller pipes, and it's basically tripled the capacity in this stream through here.
One of the problems we've actually found at Trengwainton, these old granite drainage systems that were actually built in around about 1860 can't cope with the deluges that we're actually having at the moment. Well, we've significantly invested in our drainage systems, and you can see by the size of this one here that we've actually had to put in that these are the kind of sizes we need to cope with the amount of water that we're actually having now. Well, as well as actually dealing with the excesses of rainfall we also have long periods of drought. So we've had to install systems like this as part of the whole scheme, so that we can actually water our gardens in a sustainable way.
We have a very strong flood management system in place, and by keeping in touch with the Environment Agency and them keeping in touch with us, we're able to manage it satisfactorily and so protect the business.
Well, one of the opportunities at Trengwainton really that we've noticed is to actually try things like this here, this Chilean palm, which has been quite happy and survived -6 this winter. But I think it's the whole kind of thing of not being afraid to actually try. And if we do that, we'll keep a garden dynamic and pushing forward for the future.
You can see here on a day like this, we're here standing here in February, and there's so many people on the beach, indicative perhaps that the temperatures are increasing. Perhaps 10 years ago, we wouldn't have had so many people at this time of year.
My advice to other retailers in the flood area would be to do an environmental risk assessment. Consider where water will be coming in, through drains or down through ceilings. But the main thing is to take ownership and to do some actions about those problems. And don't be afraid to go out and ask for help.
Know your landscape. If you're choosing a new site for an event or a new event, have a look at it in the winter after a heavy rain event or a freak storm. See where the drainage issues are. See where you need to improve your culverts. Are your culverts big enough? Are there hollows that need to be filled in? Plan your site around those issues if you can't resolve those issues, so that you don't have the audience walking through a hollow, which is going to be a mud bath if you have a lot of heavy rain.
The advice I would give would be don't delay, plan ahead. What we found when we took our roof away initially was lots of damage from death watch beetle and other all sorts of structural problems as a result of the weather getting in.
We must plan for the future. I've seen so much change, even in the 10 years I've been here. Things are changing. My advice to you is plan, think ahead, and manage that change.
You never think it's going to happen to you, and then one day it does.
I think most of the advice and the information that we received was North Cornwall District Council. I mean, they was first class, giving us advice as to what to do. The Environment Agency and everybody else who participated. There was loads of advice, and you had to source out your advice from whatever you were given at the time.
We have our gardens department and our gardens advisors, and they're all linked in with outside organisations, the environmental agencies, the Forestry Commission, and they will know somebody who can help.
We are going to have to adapt to these changes and challenges. The local business community and the community as a whole hopefully will all pull together, and we will be able to tackle these problems.
Well, we're looking after a living entity with this garden, and we really need to be prepared to adapt and make sure it actually lasts another 100 years.
So with the economic downturn and with the climate change issues, we see managing our golf course in a more sustainable and economic way to be absolutely crucial to our future success.
Adapting to climate change is just so important. Whether we're land managers and we're managing the natural environment here or managing a business, we can't think about the future unless we learn to adapt.
Our main objective has got to be reduction of our carbon footprint, from the small projects such as changing light bulbs, lagging, insulating, all that sort of thing, to something on a much bigger scale such as the solar panels that we have here.
It's not just the gardens and the plants, it's the buildings. I mean, people perhaps don't realise that a huge weather event can affect a building. Older buildings weren't designed with the guttering system needed now for the huge rainfall that we can get.
If we don't adapt, we won't survive. The event will fail. We saw that after the 2005 event. If we didn't put in the big culverts that you've seen, if we didn't fill in these big hollows where the mud is, we wouldn't have a festival. We cannot have that level of flooding. We wouldn't get a licence if we didn't do that work. And quite frankly, we were very lucky we didn't have people drown when we had 6 foot of water in a campsite. So you have to learn from these issues. You have to adapt. If you don't, your business goes. Because somebody else will adapt, somebody else will learn, and someone will do it better than you.
The Southwest is precious to us all. We have a responsibility to reduce our carbon footprint to minimise future climate risks. Our climate is changing, and we need to adapt. The businesses in this film have shown us what actions they've taken to ensure that our region remains a great holiday destination for the 21st century. We all need to take action now, and here are 10 top tips to help your business to adapt. Identify the impacts of climate change on your business. Check whether your business is in a flood risk area. Get help and advice. There's a lot available. Talk to other businesses and share best practice. Develop a business continuity plan to prevent disruption. Consider how your markets or products may change. Check with your insurance company that your business is fully covered. Take practical action. It could be as simple as putting in a flood board, storing water for droughts, or providing shade for your visitors. Raise visitors' awareness of the risks and communicate the positive steps that you have taken. Act now. Don't delay. It's happening now.